Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's Mike Mutka, the CEO for Straightaway Health Careers, and I'm joined today by my partner in crime, Jim Triandiflou, the CEO for Relias.
Hello everybody.
And thanks for being here. And the purpose for our session today is a little bit of a different direction. It's something you hear people talk about a lot, and that is organizational culture and how to build an effective organizational culture. And so the example we're going to use today is actually Relias Learning. It's one that Jim and I both have lived through. We both had a lot more hair than we do now.
Much more.
When we started. But I'm kind of.
Can I just tell you a little comment on that on the side?
Yeah,
I went
please do.
to I was at the DMV today.
Yeah.
Driver's license, and the woman said, "Your license says you have brown eyes and black hair." And I said, "Yep, that's good." She said, "Well, your hair's not really black anymore."
And
it was a little gray, but I just asked her to keep it black.
And there wasn't really enough there to.
No, there wasn't.
So,
sorry.
But we digress. So the case study we're going to use is Relias Learning. And Relias is a software as a service company. It's very different from you all's businesses and the things you're doing day to day. But I think there are some real common threads here that might give you some things that are transferable. Because we're really talking about what we've done specifically over the last 6 years to build a really strong organizational culture in the face of really, really rapid growth and really rapid change. And so I think there's a lot of things here that can translate well into your environment. So to give you an idea of our starting point on this story, I was part of the original team that started a company called Silverchair Learning in senior care back in 2005. In 2012, Silverchair became part of Relias Learning. And we were, at that point, about 75 employee organization at Silverchair, became part of this much larger organization. And the challenge we had, that's when Jim came in as CEO, and the challenge was, how do we build this organization and culture to scale under a lot of growth and a lot of change?
So actually in 2012, when a private equity firm acquired Silverchair and acquired Essential Learning 2 months apart, is when shortly thereafter we merged those two companies together and created Relias. So prior to 2012, Relias did not exist. But it was those two companies that came together. And as Mike said, what we thought about is how the heck are we going to create a common culture when one company had 60 employees with no home office, every single employee was remote, and Mike's company, Silverchair, had an office in North Carolina, an office in Virginia, and some people scattered about. So the challenge was, how are we going to create one culture when not only were those two companies coming together, we knew we planned to acquire more companies. And in fact, over the last 5 years, we've acquired about 15 companies. So therein lies the challenge. How do you get to a single culture when you have 15 different companies coming together very quickly?
And I will say, just in terms of how effective this has been for us, just to give you by comparison, the company's grown from about 75 FTEs to 900. In terms of the valuation and the metrics, the company fits the kind of the description of a unicorn or world-class metrics. Rapid change from North America to global in the markets. As Jim said, 2 companies to 15, from 26 million to 250 million. From a post-acute only focus to all of healthcare. And so with all of that happening, our goal was, how the heck do we do this, right? We all talk about how you get everybody rowing in the same direction, and it's a popular cliche. And for us, it was an imperative, because we knew that with all of these different perspectives and cultures coming together, if we didn't do that, we were not only not going to succeed, we probably wouldn't survive. So we were fortunate enough that we got a lot of help when we were first coming together from a person at our private equity firm in organizational development. And we used a book and an approach called The Advantage, an author named Pat Lencioni. Those of you who've been to Leading Age or AHCA, he He was a keynote at both of those probably 8, 10 years ago when a lot of his stuff was coming out. And there's been a lot of people over the years that have talked about what makes a successful company survive and thrive, whether it's good to great, built to last. People have studied this forever, and what his theory is that there's two things you have to have, and it's not enough. One, you've got to be a smart company, of course, in strategy and marketing and all of those functional areas, but that will only get you so far if you don't build a healthy organizational culture, because eventually all your advantages will change, or the markets will change, and if you don't have a healthy culture, you won't adapt to that change fast enough. So they laid out a very, very simple approach in the book, and I would caution you that simple is not the same as easy, but taking this approach, we really use this to kind of treat organizational culture like a project. And so what Lencioni talked about was that there were 4 key steps to organizational health. And the first one was that if you did not have a truly cohesive leadership team, you couldn't get anywhere. You couldn't hope to get everybody else all on the right path, because things would not trickle down in the organization. That sounds very, very cliched, and a lot of people think they've got a cohesive leadership team, but you really have to pressure test that. And Lencioni talks about his own organizational version of kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that pyramid there, basically to get to great results at the top, every one of those things has to be in place and additive to get to the next level. And in particular, we spent a ton of time on those first 2. And the first one is smart companies that aren't healthy have an absence of trust. And trust is, again, overused. We really talk about vulnerability-based trust. Are you able to apologize and admit you're wrong in front of your peers? Are you able to ask for help and say, I need help, I'm in over my head, I can't do this? Are you willing to stick your neck out there and trust that it'll be okay and that your team will support you? Those are really some of the things, admitting weaknesses, mistakes, etc., that are really key in an environment where you've got vulnerability-based trust.
So in some organizations, doing those things are viewed as a sign of weakness, that asking for help or admitting you made a mistake, they can be viewed as a sign of weakness. Lencioni says to be effective and to have cohesion, the exact opposite is true. That when people ask for help, normally they'll get it. People want to work together to support each other. And having that vulnerability is a critical element of creating trust.
Yeah, and then the next one is the ability to have healthy conflict. And in unhealthy organizations, there's a fear of conflict. And are you able to have passionate debate, unfiltered debate, really putting it out there? And we all talk about how meetings can be really boring. And usually really boring meetings are a sign of a lack of healthy conflict.
Yeah, Lencioni would say that meetings are really where the action is, that the big decisions, the reason that leaders are in leadership positions is to make big decisions, and those decisions normally happen, or at least happen best, when the topic is fully exercised, there's lots of debate on the topic, and people come together and ultimately make a decision in a meeting or in a discussion type area. Where people don't speak up, where people are afraid to speak up, you're just not going to make the best decisions. And the best decisions happen, everyone contributes.
And so if you have a feeling, that a lot of people have, that our meetings are boring, nothing gets accomplished, they're just dull, they're not interesting at all, I don't really even need to be there, that's a really, really good sign that you don't have healthy conflict in your organization. And
Lencioni wrote a whole book about that called Death by Meeting.
Death by Meeting.
We've all probably been there at some point.
Yes, or felt like we've been there. And so those two really lead to everything else. You can't get true commitment from team members if they haven't engaged in healthy conflict. If otherwise, people are backbiting, sniping, second guessing, saying that they're not really on board. And if people haven't been able to have a knockdown, drag out discussion and really state, their opinions before a decision is made, they won't truly commit and take that out of the room with them. And then you won't be able to hold them accountable.
So I'm guessing that many of you, along with us, have been in situations where a boss comes out and says to you, "Hey guys, we have to go do this. I think it's silly. I don't agree, but this is what the higher ups decided, so we got to go do it." That is an absolutely trust-busting, lack of health type conversation, and really undermines any sense of the leadership team all being on the same page. It is a lack of commitment, and there are times in an organization where we all have to lock arms and go forward, even if we don't agree 100% with the decision, but recognizing that there's not always unanimous decisions. You have to, Lencioni would say, if you have had the chance to voice your opinion, then you need to then move forward and commit to the decision. And if you find yourself not being able to do that over and over again, you may be in the wrong organization. But that alignment and everyone, leadership being on the same page, or at least communicating that to the troops, is critical for a healthy organization.
So, build a cohesive team, healthy conflict, vulnerability-based trust. These are things everybody throws around, and you kind of go, how do I actually do that? And it can feel a little bit like a cliche in a movie where the whole platoon is lined up on a line, and they say, we need volunteers. Anybody who wants to volunteer and, show some healthy conflict, step forward. Everyone's looking around going, well, what's going to happen if I step forward? And so the real key is to have some practical tools that you can take with you into day-to-day life, and particularly into meetings where all of this stuff needs to happen. And so key to us was taking some tools and running with them that allowed us to start to make it easier for people to engage in healthy conflict and show vulnerability. It gave them a way to do it that felt safe, so that they could jump in a little bit without feeling like they were going to drown by jumping right into the deep pool. So one of the most valuable tools that we used is a tool called Insights Discovery. And many of you have probably done a Myers-Briggs or DISC or some type of thing like that. Many of them are based on similar kinds of principles. The great thing about Insights is it's very portable, easy to understand and use, and easy for people to take into day-to-day life. And so one of the things that we decided to do was every new hire in our company goes through a 1.5-week boot camp. And part of that during the first week is they all take the Insights test. They all share the results with their peers in the boot camp, and they all get a half-a-day training on how Insights works and what it means. And when they go to their workstation, if you walk around our office, everybody's workstation has their Insight colors on the door.
So you have 850 people with their Insight magnets or something on their cube or door, letting us know how they communicate, what energies they're most comfortable operating in, and how you should approach them. So if I'm going to go talk to Mike, Mr. Sunshine Yellow, with his blocks up on the top right corner of this chart, Mike, we want to talk a little bit about the weekend. We want to talk about a big picture of what's going on. We want to talk strategically. We want to talk about family. We want
hilarious jokes,
funny, or maybe not so funny jokes, depending on your point of view.
Right.
But so that's a very comfortable area for Mike and how he would operate most effectively, right? Opposed to myself in the lower right-hand corner. Mike, would you like to comment on maybe my ideal profile?
So Jim leads with blue. So actually, and if you look at the wheel on the left, Jim is up in that cluster of blue under observer, and I'm the lone yellow there, so we're actually exact opposite. So I lead with yellow, which is please involve me. I want to inspire and get everyone excited and be in the middle of it all. Jim leads with blue, which is show me the details. And we both have red as our second color, which means we want to get to our places very quickly. So with Jim, I know that I can't come in just talking in general terms about anecdotes and sweeping 30,000-foot things, because he can't get there and process what we're talking about if I don't show him the data, the details that make him feel comfortable with how the decision was made or the process. He needs to see those details. After he sees those details, then it's much easier for us to get into that big picture conversation. But without those, he can't get there and be comfortable. So we both had to learn to adapt our styles to help each other get what they needed.
There are times that I think that Mike and I should go to work for Discovery Insights because we're so passionate about it. I would say it changed my life, and it certainly changed our company. And while the science behind it is probably no different than Myers-Briggs or many others, the practical applications of the colors is extremely powerful. So we can go to a meeting and someone may say, hey guys, we have to dial up our green. Our employees are really upset about this, and we need to think about what this means to them. Or, hey, we got to go red in this meeting. Let's make a decision. Or I can say to Mike, I need a little blue. Help me understand. And it's much less critical of someone. It's much less personal. It's a common vocabulary that is shared among our 850 employees today that has been really, really meaningful. And again, this isn't rocket science. I bet everyone on the phone has done a Myers-Briggs or some type of personality profile. But the question is how much it is used in the day-to-day operation of the company to create that healthy environment with a common understanding.
How do you make it portable and usable every single day? So, for example, I've been in the long-term care industry for 23 years. If I'm on a project team and I've got some more entry-level, high-potential folks that are 25, 27 years old, and I say something or throw out an idea that just doesn't make sense, which happens very often.
I cannot imagine that.
Yeah. So they may normally go, well, that doesn't make sense to me, but geez, he's been in this industry as long as I've been alive. I'm just going to go with it. With this tool, they have the ability to go, hey, can I raise a hand and ask a blue energy question? And it gives them a way to challenge me where they might not otherwise feel comfortable challenging me. Or like Jim, instead of coming in and going, can you shut up for a minute and we need a 5-minute discussion here? He can come in and go, I need 5 red minutes from you. And I know what that means, and it just gives you a way to have healthy conflict that works for everybody and can happen realistically day to day. So it has probably been one of the single most important tools for us in ensuring healthy conflict around the organization.
And creating a common culture.
Common culture, yeah, common language, common culture. So the second thing, once you've got that cohesive leadership team, the next thing is getting real clarity. So Lencioni talks about clarity in terms of 6 fundamental questions that look so easy and simple that you just look at them and go, what could that possibly do for our organization? But if you really get into them in a deep way, it's amazing the things that will be surfaced.
Yeah, and I think, Mike, if you go to the next slide, you can see how we tried to institutionalize this in our company by something that Mike created probably 6 years ago called the Relias membership card. And Mike referenced our corporate boot camp that every employee goes through in their first 8 days or in the early first couple of weeks of their time with Relias. It's 8 days long, and on day 1, they get the membership card. And this is a way for us to try to over-communicate clarity, which Lencioni says you need to do. We all know you can't say something once and have everyone get it, even though it drives us crazy sometimes. We think we have to say things over and over again. This is a way for people really to understand the answers to those 6 questions that Mike showed a second ago. And it's just one of the tools we use to try to over-communicate.
And I feel highly, highly confident that you could go into virtually any department in our organization at any level, from entry level to VP, randomly, and talk to some people and ask them what's our mission, our goal, our values, etc. And you would get people would know them, and they would know them to heart. And we make the membership card something you don't get until you've been through boot camp and gotten started. So it's a big deal. The next thing that Jim alluded to that Lencioni talks about is once you've created clarity, you can't assume that doing a PowerPoint presentation on all employee meeting one time and your work is done. You have to really, really just intensively ad nauseum continue to drive those things in until people are like, we get it, we understand what the core values are. But if you don't over communicate that, especially as you're growing or if you have turnover, you know, a lot of new people are coming into the organization, but also people have to hear it 5, 6, 7 times for it to really start to sink in. And so a big part of what we do, back to Jim mentioned Lencioni's book, Death by Meetings, but it's having meetings with real purpose and communicating frequently and over on what those things are.
Yeah. So this has been, there's probably an infinite number of ways you can reinforce this. We're going to show you another tool in a second called the rally cry, which is something we use quite frequently, but we'll use that as a teaser, Mike. And why don't we just show them a little bit about our pyramid here?
Yeah. And so one of the things we do, once you've over-communicated those things, then the last thing is you have to reinforce it with actions. And if you say it but you don't walk that talk, then it would have been better not to say it at the beginning, because people will know it's just a bunch of stuff sitting in a binder on a shelf or on a frame picture in the lobby, and it doesn't mean anything. So one of the things we do, back to that original pyramid, at the executive level, once a quarter, we all take an anonymous survey, and we get together and look and see how we feel we are doing as a leadership team on those areas of the pyramid: trust, conflict, commitment, accountability, and results. And we talk through that and understand where we're at. And this gets done in a lot of other parts of the organization too.
So we again, there are 8 people on our senior leadership team. Those 8 people, and there's been changes over the 6 years, but the 8 members of the senior leadership team, we take an online survey every single quarter to look at how we are on these 5 characteristics of a healthy team: red, yellow, or green. And we have now done this for 6 years, 4 times. So we've done it, what's that, 6 times 4, Mike, 24?
That's like a lot like 24.
Yeah, it's like 24. We've done it 24 quarters in a row. And there has been times we've had some red flare up. We've spent times we've been all green. This is pretty typical, that you see a little yellow and green. But it's a way for us not just to talk about the idea of being aligned, but to measure it and then talk about what we think is going on that is causing us to feel the way we feel. And we do it every quarter. As I said, we do an offsite meeting, and this is one of the items we start with.
And it's probably 60 questions, so it drills down and it doesn't just go to platitudes and everything. It's a pretty deep dive. And so if you're yellow or red in a certain area, it gets down very specifically and shows you why that is and where and what the distribution of responses are. So you can get into some pretty interesting conversations when there's an area where 6 of the 8 people said we were great and 2 people said we were terrible. Yeah. And you start talking about why that is.
So as an example, we were considering the largest acquisition we'd ever done in our company's history. And we were having much heated debate and conflict around this acquisition, with 2 or 3 people strongly against it, 2 or 3 people strongly for it, and 2 or 3 people on the fence. And also a feeling probably that I was strongly in favor, and so were people truly speaking their mind. We happened to be doing the assessment, in the middle of all these debates, and it's one where our trust scores were the lowest that they had been. Our conflict was high, our healthy conflict, as Lencioni would say, but it really was insightful to understand what was going on in people's minds as we were about to make maybe one of the biggest decisions we were going to make as a company.
Yep. So along the lines of reinforcing clarity is making sure everybody understands the 6th question that Lencioni has: what's important now? And he uses a concept called the rally cry, and that's a big theme that is most important for that typically 6-month kind of period, or for the whole year. And the theme is, in this case, in 2015, we were moving from post-acute care only and behavioral health to all of acute care. So our theme was go big in healthcare. And then when you have that theme, then you have what are called defining objectives. Those are things that would have to be true in 6-8 months for us to look back and say, yeah, we went big in healthcare. And then you have what are standard operating objectives, kind of your day jobs. So this is something that's always in place and gets refreshed every 6 months or however is needed. And so you go big in healthcare, and so we have to have done those 5 things really well. And we use just a green, yellow, red. Green means we did it. Yellow means we're not quite on track, but we can get there. Red means we're in trouble.
So Lencioni would say it's great to have your mission. It's great to have your core values. Those are things that are important. But employees need to understand what they should be doing today. Not just the big picture of help the most vulnerable members of society, but more specifically, what are the tactical things that have to get accomplished right now to make this a good year? And that's what those defining objectives capture. And then the rally cry is like a theme or a message that we think is the right way to kind of a pithy kind of marketing type statement that does capture those defining objectives.
So this is one of those things that our employees get nauseated seeing every month at the all hands meeting. Yes, we get it. But they also want to see it because they want to know how we're doing.
They'll see it again this Thursday in our all hands. So every month.
Additionally, there's a whole lot of things. Lots of these are tools that you've seen or used before, you may be using now, things that are important for just reinforcing clarity and the right behaviors. We are very big on testing all new hires using kind of a test that measures the ability to fit well with our organization and our core values. We're very big on having systems in place that give visibility into performance metrics and people seeing daily metrics, lots of daily stand-up meetings that happen all over the organization. We use a whole variety of recognition programs, short-term and longer-term, to reinforce the values. We focus a lot on HIPPL hiring, which is a high-potential entry-level folks, and putting developmental programs in place for those people. And we're very aggressive in our ongoing plan for developing top people. So we use stack ranking, but in a very positive way. We kind of look at the top 25 or 50 people and make sure that we're challenging them constantly, giving them new opportunities, new growth, new projects, advancement, et cetera. And we look at that very, very regularly across the organization.
One of the things that Lencioni would say is people look very, very closely at who's getting promoted. You know, have you ever been in a situation where some knucklehead gets promoted and your employees are looking around saying, oh my gosh, they want me to be more like him or her? That's really the behaviors that they want. So promotions are one of those very highly visible things that reinforces the behaviors and the culture of an organization.
Yep. So a lot of things, again, most important is picking the range of tools in your tool belt that'll work for you. Just overall, I think probably at a high level, the most critical thing for us was an absolute commitment from the leadership team to this organizational health circle and to building particularly on those 2 bottom portions of the pyramid, vulnerability-based trust and creating an environment of healthy conflict. And I think more than anything, those are the things that have allowed us to adapt and change and be effective, because the reality is nothing ever goes to plan. And once the plan isn't working right, it comes down to how well can people adapt, work together. First off, can they go, hey, things aren't working to plan, and can people admit it and say, we got to do something differently, and then can they effectively work together? And so that's been really key to us.
So just maybe a comment on trust and conflict. Trust, as I think most of us would agree, is the foundation of any relationship in our lives. And if you have trust, you can do great things. But you can also see situations where people want to have healthy debate, and they want to debate a topic, but if there's not trust, that debate feels like politics. What are they really thinking? I hear the words, but what's going on in their mind? And that is a sign, if you find yourself doing that, that means you don't trust the person that is delivering that message.
What's the answer they're looking for?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
So conflict without trust is politics. And trust is a very hard thing to get, obviously. It takes time, it takes shared experience. We believe it takes vulnerability. But once you have that trust in place amongst a group of 5, 7, 10 people, you can really do amazing things. Without that, it's hard to do amazing things, and even if you do, it's not very fun if you're always, feeling like you're not sure what people are really trying to tell you.
Yeah. So, obviously in 30 minutes, we're just scratching the surface, kind of giving you an appetizer. So, happy to go in deeper with folks if there's interest in learning more and you want a bigger meal than the appetizer. The things I would tell you are the biggest thing is having a commitment on your team to think of organizational culture as a project that you're going to staff and support and manage over the course of the year, just like a project, and measure. These are some really, really great tools for us. Again, insights is critical, using some kind of initial testing of candidates. The book, The Advantage, and Death by Meeting, those are all tools that I think are really, really a great start. But using that pyramid and focusing especially on vulnerability-based trust and healthy conflict, and looking to see whether you really have that, and using your meetings not as something boring where people can't stand to be in them because they feel like nothing ever happens, turning them into something exciting where people go, wow, I wonder what fireworks are going to break out this week. What kind of discussion are we going to get into this week are key things to starting to turn that corner. So that concludes our presentation. I don't know if there were any questions out there or not, but we can make the slides, absolutely, we can make the slides available to anybody. If you just email, we'll make those slides available to you. If you want any information on any of these resources, there's a great 8-page PDF summary of the Advantage out there, and there are lots of tools out there if you Google some of these other things as well, that are super helpful. All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.